American Timelines is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network, powered by Ortho Carolina. Find out more at queencitypodcastnetwork.com.
So now I'm obsessed with time. Come on, tell me about the time. Had it all in my hand tonight. Had the time of my life. When the words all come down like blues on Tuesday.
Welcome to episode 116 of History for Jerks presents American Timelines.
I'm Amy, and that's Joe.
And I'm Nirmal Bhargava.
And this is, I guess, another day and another podcast.
It's another podcast from quarantine in the middle of a pandemic.
Yes.
We apologize. We didn't put out a new episode last week. We never got around to it.
Well, our whole upstairs of our house was being redecorated pretty much.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So our podcast studio was filled with furniture.
Yes, that's right.
Also, we didn't get around to it.
Nope, that's true,
Like
too.
it's hard. Like, we're all going through some stuff together as a country and as a world.
Yeah.
And hang in there. Be nice to each other. We apologize to all of you who are having trouble.
Mm-hmm.
To all of you who have lost your job.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll get through this and you'll have a job when it comes through. Hopefully you can take a little solace in this podcast, this little silly, goofy podcast called American Timelines.
Right.
If you like it and it for some reason makes you happy because Amy tells you about other people's horrible suffering, or you laugh at my inability to make any sense, then I'm glad.
Yep.
And
okay.
thank you.
So
Please wear a mask.
Yes.
God damn it.
Yes.
Anyway. Yeah, so we left off last episode. There's one thing before we get into this one. We talked about, the beginning of 1969 in January, and I ended up with talking about the Beatles Rooftop concert, and I was kicking myself for not. There's a bunch of stuff about that Rooftop concert, and I couldn't remember what it was, and I didn't look it up, blah, blah, blah. So I found this link at rollingstone.com, an article about Beatles' famous rooftop concert, 15 Things You Didn't Know by Jordan Runtag. So I'll just quickly go through some of the things we didn't know.
Okay.
And if you care, tell me to talk more about it. If not, let's move on.
Okay.
The concert was originally going to take place in an ancient amphitheater or on a cruise ship or in the desert.
Okay.
The film of it is directed by the secret son of Orson Welles, allegedly.
Okay.
The microphones were wrapped in women's pantyhose. I think because it was so cold.
Yeah.
It was their first live performance in over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
George Harrison's guitar was the first of its kind. John Lennon needed cue cards to remember his own lyrics because it had been so long.
Yeah, you'd be worried you were going to mix it up or something.
Yep. Well, and he just couldn't remember because they didn't play live anymore, remember?
Mm-hmm.
The police weren't as bad as they've been made out to be, according to these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Police stopping everybody.
Yeah.
The set list may have ended up being longer. I don't know what
that means.
Billy Preston received the only official Beatles co-credit. The site of the rooftop concert is now a children's Abercrombie and Fitch.
Oh, God.
I always wonder what it is now. It's the last sound you hear on the Beatles' final release, this rooftop concert. I think that's it. Was that 15 Things?
Yeah.
And then, here's just something that nobody talks about. At the end of every article you see online now, why is there 8 clickbait things that are like stupid crap, and why do I click on them sometimes? Like,
I know.
Like, there's a picture of some woman in a bathing suit. It's like, she never got married, and now we know why. And it makes you want to click on it, or it's like what do these 80s stars look like now?
Yes.
And I'm like, oh shit, I got to see what Tootie looks like.
It's a modern tabloid.
And then I click it, I'm like, I could have just Googled what Tootie looks like. Why do I have to click that?
Well, and who gives a shit what Tootie looks like? It's
I
a
do.
Bigger question.
Now we're talking about Kim Fields. She looks great. Have I mentioned this?
Yeah, probably does.
She looks fabulous. Tootie is all of them. You look back at what they all look like now.
Yeah.
She looks great. Like, I want to be with Kim
Mindy
Fields.
still alive?
From Mork and Mindy?
No. Mindy.
Mindy Cohn,
Yeah.
who played Natalie.
Yes.
I think so. And I think she looks old like anybody would
Yeah.
be. But I did hear that Blair, Lisa Whelchel,
Mm-hmm.
was on Survivor or something recently, or was trying to be on
Oh.
Survivor. Anyway,
It was kind of forward thinking of them to put a chubby girl in there.
I don't know if they did it on purpose.
And they ended up.
Because remember, they were kids, and then they grew up. Like, there was a lot more of them when they were kids. The first
yeah, but
season,
I think she's the one that lost her virginity, I think.
Natalie was?
I think so.
You're probably right. And it was forward thinking to have a lesbian.
Right, which
have
they never
Joe.
said.
But I don't think she was. She had a boyfriend, so
Yeah.
she wasn't supposed to be a lesbian.
But she sure was.
Yeah,
Boy, howdy.
she should have been. Yeah.
Her and Velma.
Velma's not a lesbian,
Oh,
is she?
sure she is.
What, did they hint at that?
I feel like it.
Oh, well. Anyway, we finished January, so we left off, I think, at the beginning of February.
Oh, and
right?
Leather Tuscadero. That's the third one that I
Was
always
she a
felt
lesbian
was.
too?
That's how I always.
And she beat up. Did
felt.
she bang Fonzie?
I don't know.
I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, back then in the 80s and the 70s, lesbians were always banging dudes, like, because they couldn't say they were lesbians. Anyway, February 1st, 1969, Tommy James and the Shondells took over the #1 spot in the Billboard charts with Crimson and Clover.
Oh, that song.
Do you love that song?
Yeah.
And the very next day was a Sunday, and February 2nd, the Burdell Mansion Commune. You ever heard of that? The Burdell Mansion Commune,
Nope.
home at one time to members of the Grateful Dead rock band, and later to more than 50 hippies who called their group the Chosen Family, was destroyed by an electrical fire.
Oh.
Decades later, California state archaeologists would excavate the ruins to study the hippie culture.
Did they really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Boris Karloff died on the same day. And then Monday, February 3rd, 1969, an airplane was hijacked to Cuba, but the passengers didn't think it was real because they saw Candid camera creator Alan Funt on board.
Oh, my God.
Isn't that hilarious?
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Funt and his wife and his 2 youngest children boarded Eastern Airlines Flight 7 in Newark,
Well, he
New
must
Jersey.
have known it was real.
With a he was the only one with a destination of Miami, Florida.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. While en route, 2 men hijacked the plane and demanded passage to Cuba. However, some of the passengers, having spotted Funt, believed the whole thing to be a candid camera stunt. I bet that would
so
be
funny.
easy on them. Like, they wouldn't be so nervous.
Yeah.
Oh, this is just candid camera.
It's just candid
Oh,
camera.
we're going to be on TV.
Hey, Bob, it's just candid camera.
Funt repeatedly attempted to persuade his fellow passengers as to the reality of the hijacking, but to no avail. The plane landed later in Cuba, finally convincing the passengers. Funt and others were later released after 11 hours of being held captive.
Oh, my God. That's so funny.
Isn't that a
And,
funny thing that happened?
I mean, I can't imagine. I can't believe the number of hijackings that we're
It was a
talking
huge
about.
thing back then. Like,
Yeah.
that was a thing. Like, everybody. Because you couldn't, I guess you
It was
couldn't.
common.
Yeah. And, you know, we talked about that a couple episodes
But
ago.
I guess
Like,
the
looked up
difference
why.
is they didn't ever. We had all these hijackings, but they never purposely crashed into something to
No,
kill a
they
bunch
just
of
needed to
people.
get to Cuba. They were
Yeah.
trying to get there for free.
Yeah.
You know? Or get there. You know,
But
I
that's
think-
I'm like in thinking like, well, how come the airport laws didn't change like then? But it's really because those hijackings weren't meant to kill people. They just wanted
it
to.
was more a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Like, you'd have to be, oh, now we got to stay here for a couple of days. We're all rerouted. Plus, they talked about it. Like, let's change the things. And they were like, no way can you ever. Like, the airline industry was too new, and they were like, that will ruin business. Nobody will fly anymore if they have to go through all this bullshit.
Yeah.
So
They were
and that's what
wrong.
we talked about a couple episodes ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, remember I talked about that, and they said, well, instead, let's make that fake airport and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
anyway, that brings us to February 4th, was a Tuesday of 1969. The derailment of the Trichinopoly to Madras Express train in India killed 25 people and injured another 25. Nearly all the victims had been non-paying passengers riding on the roof of the train.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, so people, India, tons of people must just jump
Yeah.
on trains all the time.
Yeah.
And
There's
then
just so many people there.
there's a lot of people in Windia. Wednesday, February 5th, 1969. A new sketch comedy show on ABC called Turn On premiered from the creators of NBC's popular Laugh-In. It was at 8:30 p.m. in the Eastern Time for its first and only episode. One television station in Cleveland took the show off the air after the first commercial break, and stations in Portland and Seattle refused to air it after learning the reaction in the earlier time zones. Enough viewers and ABC station owners were offended by the show, and its cancellation was announced 2 days later. That same day that Turn On was started and was canceled, Bobby Brown, American R&B singer, born in... Where was he born? Bobby Brown?
New York?
Boston.
Oh. How was I supposed to know that?
New Edition. Aren't they all from Boston?
I don't know.
Oh. And that brings us to...
I thought they're from Philadelphia.
That's... You think of Boys to Men.
Oh.
Racist. Friday, February 7th, 1969, Diane Crump of Woodmont, Connecticut became the first woman jockey to ride a racehorse in American competition. With odds 50-1 on the horse, Bridle and Bit, 19-year-old Crump finished 10th in a field of 12 in the 7th race that day at Florida's Hialeah racetrack near Miami.
I don't understand why they didn't use women before. I mean,
They're so much lighter.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people felt like women can't do anything except cry.
Pretty much. Cook and cry and
Cook
shit
and cry
out babies.
and bleed and shit up, poop out babies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, there was the whole thing about, like, women can't do anything. Like, women are property. They can't vote.
I think it's still bad. Like,
Yeah.
we had a black man president before we had a woman president.
That's
Like,
true.
sometimes I wonder which one is worse. Which,
We had a gay man, too, James Buchanan.
well, he was, but nobody knew, right?
I think back then, that was so long ago that people didn't care. Like, they're like, so what? Gay people are everywhere. Who cares?
No.
Everybody knew. They all called him Aunt Nancy.
Really?
Yeah.
I think they just thought it was a joke or something.
No, they all knew it. I don't think they weren't as homophobic. Because
Well, what
nobody wanted
changed?
rights or anything.
Oh, that's
You know what I
what's
mean? Like,
changed.
nobody lived as that. You just kept it. Everybody's kept it a secret, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
You just don't talk about it.
All right.
I think. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I didn't live around in the 1800s. Maybe everybody didn't know. I don't know. Tuesday, February 11th, 1969, U.S. President Nixon called for a war on organized crime, requesting Congress to pass laws allowing confiscation of mafia assets, including any funds traced to criminal activity. The result would be the passage of the Organized Crime Control Act of 1970. That same day, Jennifer Aniston was born. Your
God,
favorite actress.
It took until 1969 for them to do that?
Apparently.
Huh.
Because people probably just let organized crime go before that, don't you think?
Well, you had Elliot Ness and stuff. in
That's
the
true. That was in the
30s, I think.
Was it? I don't know. Thursday, February 13th, 1969. African American students staged simultaneous protests on college campuses across the U.S. as part of the Black Campus Movement, the BCM. An author would later write that if there was a day, or the day, that black campus activists forced the racial reconstruction of higher education, it was February 13th, 1969. It was like no other day in the history of black higher education. This day had been in the making for more than 100 years and changed the course of higher education for decades to come.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. That was my mom's 18th birthday.
Oh, there you go.
And then on Tuesday, February 18th, 1969, all 35 passengers and crew on board Hawthorne Nevada Airlines Flight 708 were killed after the DC-8 plane crashed on the side of Mount Whitney shortly after taking off from Hawthorne, Nevada.
Oh, man.
32 passengers had spent the previous day at the El Capitan Casino and were returning to Long Beach, California. The wreckage of the Gambler Special would not be located until August 8th.
Boom.
February 20th, 1969 was a Thursday. U.S. President Richard M. Nixon asked Congress to begin the process of abolishing the Electoral College, with a proposed amendment to the U.S. Constitution to be considered by the states.
God, I wish they would have done that.
Nixon, who said that the American presidential voting system once again requires overhaul to repair defects spotlighted by the circumstances of 1968, suggested that the amendment take the form of either dividing each state's electoral votes in a manner that may more closely approximate the popular vote in the state, or that popular vote winner be declared president as long as he or she had gotten at least 40% of the vote. If no candidate won at least 40%, the top 2 vote getters would face each other in a runoff election. I don't know why they didn't end up doing it.
Why didn't they do that? Oh,
Yeah.
God.
We wouldn't have that jackasses we did. Because
We wouldn't have had Bush W either.
They did the Electoral College because we didn't have newspapers and instant news. You know, you had no way to know the people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now we
Right.
have all this stuff.
Well, and it was
so
to
outdated.
ensure that dangerous people didn't become president. But it
Yeah.
obviously
And now
doesn't do that
It
now.
doesn't do that now. Like we've got one now. And
Yeah.
it's the opposite. It's to be able to manipulate things.
Yeah.
So it's terrible. And then on Thursday, February 27th, 1969, one of the least successful Broadway productions, but seriously, opened at Henry Miller's Theater. Despite a cast that included Richard Dreyfuss and Tom Poston. Tom Poston is the greatest actor of all time, and the authorship of Academy Award-winning screenwriter Julius Epstein, who won the Oscar for Casablanca. The play had its 4th and final performance on Saturday, March 1st. It would be the last Broadway play to be staged at Henry Miller's Theater. And then Friday, February 28th, 1969, Sirhan Bashara Sirhan, on trial in L.A. for the 1968 murder of President candidate Robert F. Kennedy, stood up in court shortly after the first defense witness began to testify after Supreme Court Judge Herbert V. Walker sent the jury out and allowed Sirhan to speak. The accused assassin said, "At this time, I wish to withdraw my original plea of innocent and plead guilty on all counts."
Yep.
Then added on further questioning that I will also ask to be executed, and that I believe it is my best interest. That is my prerogative.
Oh, really?
Judge Walker declined to accept the guilty plea, along with Sirhan's request to fire the 3 attorneys who had volunteered to defend him. March 1st was a Saturday of 1969, and Frank Sinatra released his signature song, My Way, nearly 3 decades after he began his singing career.
Oh, he just released it in '69?
Yeah, did you know that?
I didn't know. I thought it was older.
Me too. I thought it was always around. I thought it always existed.
Just always.
That same day, Jim Morrison, the lead singer for The Doors, performed a controversial rock concert
Oh, he had his dick out.
and other alleged acts before 12,000 fans at the Dinner Key Auditorium in Miami.
Yep.
3 days later, a Miami court would issue warrants for his arrest on a felony charge of indecent exposure and 5 misdemeanor charges, although by that time he was no longer in Miami. Morrison would return to Miami to be arraigned on the criminal charges on November 9th and remain free after posting bond. Following 16 days of his testimony, Morrison would be found guilty of the indecent exposure charge on September 20th, 1970, and will be sentenced to 6 months in jail and a $500 fine, but would post bail while the case was on appeal. Morrison would die of heart failure on July 3rd, 1971, during the time the appeal was in progress. He had his dick out?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen that?
I don't think it's on.
Were you there?
Videotaped. No, obviously not.
Well, you're pretty old, so no offense.
My mom saw him front row center.
Did he have his dick out then?
No, but she said he was like, she didn't know who he was, and her friends just had tickets, so she went.
Your mom's never heard of Jim Morrison?
It was at the very beginning of the Doors,
Oh.
and she went to see them, and she said it was like Jello, like the way he moved was like
Jello, like he's made of Jello.
Yeah. He was real
Remember that?
charismatic, like.
Remember that Jello pilot, an airplane? That guy's made of jelly, or they're cracking up like jelly, and like a jelly.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't either. Anyway, that same day, Clay Shaw, the only person ever indicted for conspiracy in the assassination of JFK,
Yeah.
was acquitted of all charges by a jury in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
And Javier Bardem was born, your favorite actor of all time.
I don't think.
Sunday, March 2nd, 1969, 11 spectators at a drag strip track were killed and more than 40 others injured when one of the race cars went out of control at a speed of 180 miles an hour. The car, a 1969 Chevy Camaro, crashed through a chain link fence at the Yellow River drag racing strip in Covington, Georgia.
Whoa.
That same day, Jack Murph the Surf Murphy was sentenced to life imprisonment following his conviction on first-degree murder and the deaths of 2 people in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. His co-defendant, Jack Griffith, was found guilty of second-degree murder and given a 45-year prison sentence. Under Florida law at that time, Murphy would be eligible for parole after 7 years despite the life sentence, while Griffith would not be eligible for 15 years.
Okay.
You know those people?
I don't know that one.
No, I figure you knew them.
Nope.
I'm skipping that. March 3rd, 1969 was a Monday. The U.S. Navy established the Navy Fighter Weapons School that was profiled in the 1986 film Top Gun at Naval Air Station Miramar. Top Gun's your favorite movie of all time.
No, I've never seen it.
Neither have I. And people get mad at me.
And we've talked about it.
We
before.
have, yes.
Yeah.
Screw Tom Cruise. I just don't think I can do any more Tom Cruise movies.
No, I know.
Who ordered the code red? That's the only one I like. March 4th, 1969 was a Tuesday, and Chaz Bono was born as...
Chastity Bono.
Yes. Wednesday, March 5th, 1969, serial killer Tony Costa was arrested in Boston. An hour after police discovered he dismembered bodies of 2 23-year-old women who had last been seen on January 24th. Women had the misfortune of renting a room at a boarding house in Provincetown, where Costa had also been staying, and had vanished minutes after the house proprietor had introduced them. At the time of Costa's arrest, police had found 4 bodies buried in the sand dunes of Cape Cod near Truro, Massachusetts.
Wow.
What about that one? Have you done that one?
I don't know that one
You
either.
don't know that one either?
No.
Man, you got so many murders, and I'm just dropping murders on you,
You
left
are.
and
You're
right.
dropping murder bombs.
Dropping murder bombs, y'all. And I got a murder boner.
That's weird.
March 5th, 1969, according to HuffPost, Harvard University's Hasty Pudding Institute of 1770, a renowned social club for students, bestowed its Man of the Year award to comedian Bill Cosby in 1969. According to an LA Times UPI wire published on March 5th, 1969, recently uncovered by the Huffington Post, the comedian proposed changing the name of the annual honor to the Nice Guy As Far As We Know Award.
Really?
He said that back then when they gave that to him.
Oh, man.
And now,
Yeah,
we know why he said that, because he was actively raping
people. Yeah.
He said, you might want to call it the Nice Guy As Far As We Know Award. He thought nobody would ever catch him.
Yeah. God, he was pompous about it.
Little did he know.
Yeah.
Sunday, March 9th, 1969. Have you ever heard of the Shags?
Nope. I don't think.
The Shags, who are sisters Helen, Betty, and Dot Wiggin of Fremont, New Hampshire, made a studio recording of what would become the cult classic record album Philosophy of the World. It earned a place in pop music history as the world's worst rock band.
Really?
Yes, and I'm going to play this.
Is it really terrible?
And yeah, copywriting be damned, because this is the worst thing I've ever heard in my life.
And it was named as the worst rock album?
Is the worst rock band. Like, they're the world's worst rock band. The Shags.
While even Dracula will be there. It's time for games, it's time for fun, not for just one, but for everyone. The Draculent is the
It's not even music.
all the dummies are made and stuff by design to waste.
It's not. They can't even play instruments.
I turned around and headed for home. I learned my lesson.
God, they don't even have time. Like they're not
Yeah,
even.
it's 3 women. It's like they don't know how to. I think they don't know how to play.
There's not even a beat.
Yeah, it's
Oh my
awful. They're just like
God.
hitting things. It's awful.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And online you can see there's like, they still play now. They're old ladies and they still play sometimes, I think.
They do.
I saw them play. They were doing covers and I saw them somewhere online. But anyway, that's awful. And I don't know why that exists.
I know.
Anyway, they're the Shags. Helen, Betty, and Dot Wiggin of Fremont, New Hampshire. March 10th, 1969 was a Monday.
Mm-hmm.
In Memphis, Tennessee, James Earl Ray pled guilty to assassinating Martin Luther King Jr.
That's right. A story.
That same day, Mario Puzo's novel The Godfather was first distributed to booksellers by the publisher G.P. Putnam and Sons. Next is March 12th, 1969 was a Wednesday. Paul McCartney became the last member of the Beatles to get married.
Oh.
As he and American photographer Linda Eastman participated in a morning civil ceremony at the registrar's office in London's Marylebone district.
Nailed it.
Later the same day, fellow Beatle George Harrison and Harrison's wife Patty were arrested in a raid on their home at Esher, Surrey, on charges of possession of marijuana. The Harrisons posted bond and were released. And that same day, Jake Tapper was born. So think about that. Jake Tapper could be a marijuana love baby that was born during Paul McCartney's wedding and George Harrison's marijuana arrest. Jake Tapper. From now on, every time we see Jake Tapper, boy, that guy was born on the day Paul McCartney got married to a lady with one leg.
I'm going to kill myself.
Didn't Linda have one leg? Linda McCartney, right? Is that right? Didn't Paul McCartney, his wife, have one leg? She died?
She died, and I think his new girlfriend does.
She has one leg?
Yeah.
One leg.
All right.
One love.
Move it on.
And then Saturday, March 15th, 1969, dude. Tommy Rowe takes over the number one spot in the Billboard charts with a song called Dizzy.
Yeah.
He's got a super hot girl dancing, like 60s style. I picture women in the 60s all just dancing like that.
Yeah.
So look up this song on YouTube, Tommy Rowe Dizzy. And that's what I think of all the 60s. It's just women that look like that dancing like that.
Mm-hmm.
That same day, the very next day, on Sunday, March 16th, 1969, the Tony Award-winning musical 1776 opened on Broadway, beginning the first of 1,217 performances, all in one day.
Yeah.
Starring a cast led by William Daniels as John Adams and Howard Da Silva as Benjamin Franklin, the production had music and lyrics by Sherman Hemsley.
No.
Sherman Edwards. And they weren't all those performances weren't one day.
I know. I know that.
That was a josh. I was joshing you.
I'm aware of that.
This just isn't working. Tuesday, March 18th, 1969, The Breakfast Club movie came out.
No.
Oh, no. Operation Breakfast. Sorry. The covert bombing of Cambodia by U.S. planes began. That's a little different than the movie The Breakfast Club.
Just a little. Slightly.
Starring Judd Nelson and Judd Hirsch as the Judds.
All right. Moving on.
Moving on. That same day, Barbara Bates, an American film and TV actress, died by carbon monoxide suicide. You know who that is?
No.
I don't either, but she killed herself. Thursday. What else are you going to do?
That's right.
Thursday, March 20th, 1969. 69, dude. Metal detection devices were first used in American airports.
Oh, finally.
Just think about it. Before that, no metal detectors.
No
anything. You just get on them,
Yep.
bring whatever you want on the plane.
Yep.
The day after, the Federal Aviation Administration demonstrated the device for news reporters. The detectors, which were originally silent and made so that passengers would be unaware that they were scanned as they walked through a gate, were tested in several Eastern Airlines terminals at airports later identified as John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York, Washington National Airport, Hartsfield International Airport in Atlanta, Miami International Airport, and Lambert Field in St. Louis. That same day was 8 days after Paul McCartney's wedding. John Lennon and Yoko Ono were married at Gibraltar and then proceeded to their honeymoon in Amsterdam, where starting on March 25th, they performed what they called a bed-in for peace for the duration of their stay.
Now I know that.
I don't think I knew that was in Amsterdam. Did you? Is that well known?
I don't know. I don't know where it was.
I remember all the videos and pictures
I
from
don't know why
it.
I thought it was Canada.
I thought it was in the U.S. I didn't know it was in Amsterdam. I'm Shows you how much I know.
Yeah. Well, neither of us are real swift.
Well, that's true. I guess we have to destroy our Beatles
Yep.
records. And then Friday, March 21st, 1969, Ali Dai, an Iranian soccer football forward and a national team member in 149 matches, was born in Ardabil.
Why are you bringing that up?
Just to get a rise out of you.
Oh.
Saturday, March 22nd, 1969. Now, bear with me.
No, wait a minute. What's my date?
24th of March.
Okay.
Saturday, March 22nd, 1969, dude. The UCLA Bruins defeated the Purdue Boilermakers 92-72 to win their third consecutive NCAA basketball championship. UCLA's Lou Alcindor, who would later change his name to?
I don't know. Magic Johnson?
No.
I don't know.
No, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Oh, okay.
It was Lou Alcindor. He scored 37 points in his final college game. The game was played at 2 in the afternoon at Freedom Hall in Louisville, Kentucky, and was only close for the first 4 minutes when Purdue enjoyed a brief 4-2 lead. The high scorer for Purdue with 28 points was Rick Mount. A guy named Rick Mount.
Yep.
That guy
That guy.
should have changed his name. Boom! He was gonna. Word is that Rick Mount was going to change his name, but Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the name he wanted. It was already
And it
taken.
was already
so he
taken.
just stuck with Rick
Yeah.
Mount.
That's right. There's no other option.
Rick Mount. I mounted Rick Mount's mom last night.
All right.
Boom! Just kidding. On Sunday, March 23rd, I didn't actually mount anyone's mom last night.
All right.
23rd of March 1969 was a Sunday.
Mhm.
In a reaction to the earlier controversy over Jim Morrison's conduct during the earlier concert by The Doors, a group of 30,000 people gathered at the Orange Bowl Stadium in Miami for a rally for decency organized by teenagers.
Jeez.
Celebrity guests included Jackie Gleason, Anita Bryant, and the pop rock group The Lettermen. That same day, Charles Manson made an unexpected visit to 10050 Cielo Drive, the California home rented by film director Roman Polanski and his wife, actress
Sharon Tate.
Sharon Tate. Not Sharon Box, Sharon Tate. Manson was searching for the previous resident, record producer
Oh, the Beach Boys guy.
Terry Melcher,
Yeah, Terry Melcher. That's
from
right.
whom he had tried to obtain a musical recording contract. On August 8th, not knowing Melcher's new location, but having learned that the house at Benedict Canyon was occupied by celebrities, Manson would direct a group of his followers to travel to the house and murder everyone there.
We'll talk about it. We'll get into it.
And we'll get to this?
We'll get to that.
Okay. I didn't know any of this. I don't know. I really don't know much about the Charles Manson
You
thing.
will find out.
You've made me watch probably 17 different things
I
about it,
know.
and I try to auto asphyxiate myself. Is that what
What?
it's what's the thing where you try to put a bag over your head and suffocate?
Autoerotic asphyxiation?
Yeah, autoerotic asphyxiate myself. I keep trying to do that every time you make me watch a murder show.
All right.
So I don't pay attention. So I'll stop there. I won't say anything
Yeah,
more.
you don't have to say anything.
And that brings us to Monday, March 24th, 1969, where you're going to go in depth on this Charles Manson thing, right?
No, it's not Charles Manson.
Oh,
We're
it's
not going
not.
to talk about that till August.
Oh, even though this happened. This was just a precursor.
The murders happened in August.
Oh, so this is a preview.
He was just, like casing
Sniffing
the
around,
joint.
and he stumbled onto some
Yeah.
celebrities.
That's right.
All right, that brings us to Monday, March 24th, 1969, and Amy is going to tell us something that happened the same day that Then Came Bronson was on NBC, and while Tony Curtis was on Laugh-In that
Well,
night.
okay, first of all,
Oh, boy.
I
Here
just want
comes
to
some
say
anger.
that it was hard to find like a date, like an event that was significant. I mean, I have this date in my research, but it's in the middle somewhere, and it's not like the beginning or the ending of this event.
Okay.
It's-
I'm sure nobody cares about that.
That's what I figure. So
Nobody even listens.
So I'm going to tell the story
I
of
mean, the people that do listen, they half listen.
yeah.
They're doing other things. They're
usually
knitting or
whacking off.
some are whacking off. Some are painting pictures. Some are making decoupage.
Sweaters.
Decoupage.
Knitting
Some are making
sweaters.
paper mache.
Okay, So I'm going to tell the story of the Ypsilanti Ripper.
I think it's Ypsilanti.
Ypsilanti Ripper.
They say Ypsilanti.
That's
the Y
right.
is like a
Silent.
kind of, but you still say Ip. But anyway, the
Okay.
Ypsilanti Ripper. I feel like we already talked about it. A guy
No.
from Ypsilanti that killed people, didn't we?
No. So
Oh, okay.
we talked about Ed Kemper, the co-ed killer, and this guy's
Ed
also
Kemper.
sometimes called the co-ed killer too.
Oh, so there's two
Co-ed
co-ed killers. So this is not to be confused with Ed Kemper, the most famous co-ed
Co-ed
killer.
killer.
We already covered on episode. Enter later. But now this is a different one. This guy's name is what?
We'll get there.
Oh, okay. We'll get there. We're not ready.
His name's John Norman Collins.
John Norman Collins.
So there was I'm going to start. This is an article by Catherine Ramsland. A body found yesterday afternoon in a Superior Township farm was tentatively identified as that of a 19-year-old Eastern Michigan University co-ed who disappeared without a trace July 9th.
Oh.
So
She
this
disappeared on July 9th
This
of
report-
1969?
No, I'll tell you.
Oh, okay.
This
Sorry.
this report in the Ann Arbor News on Tuesday, August 8th, 1967.
Oh, August 8th, 1967. The same day that American actress and professional wrestler Sable was born in Jacksonville, Florida as Rena Marlette Greek.
Mm-hmm.
She was super hot.
So this report described the first of a string of co-ed murders in the Ypsilanti, Ann Arbor area
Okay.
of Michigan over the next 2
No.
years.
Okay, gotcha. Ann Arbor. A lot of people know this, and some may not. That Ann Arbor is the home of the great Michigan Wolverines, the most winningest football team in college football history.
The body was that of Mary Flezer, 19.
Mary Flezer?
Flezer,
Okay.
who was last seen by a roommate when she left their apartment near the university campus to go for a walk.
No, never go for a walk.
She had not taken her purse, but her car keys were gone, and her car was parked across from where she normally left it, which made her mother worried.
No.
Half an hour after she left the apartment, a university officer had spotted her walking alone.
Now, these university officers have never been very helpful, I don't
Later, a man sitting on his porch who knew her
Yeah.
saw her walking toward her apartment, and then he saw a young man driving by in a bluish-gray Chevy, and
Okay.
he stopped beside her, opened his window and to talk to her, and he couldn't hear what they were saying, but he saw her shake her head and start to walk, and then the guy pulled up in front next to her again, was
Yeah.
trying to talk to her, and she shook her head again, and she kept walking.
think. Oh, no. He
And
should
then-
have intervened at that point,
And then
in hindsight.
then he saw her kind of get closer to her building, and then he lost
figured it was
sight
okay.
of her.
Yeah.
But he did not see the car return. But he was the last person to see her alive.
Oh, no. Poor fella. That had to be hard for him. He probably
Yep.
tormented himself.
The body was found by two 15-year-old boys.
215-pound boys?
Two 15-year-old boys.
Oh, two 15-year-old boys.
They were
Okay.
working at the farm preparing to plow a field when they heard a car door slam. So then they thought they might witness a pair of lovers in some clandestine
Oh, yeah. So
meeting.
they stopped what they were doing, and we're going to watch this.
Yes. So they went over to where they had heard the sound, which was near the foundation of a former farmhouse and silo. It was like
Okay.
kind of a dumping site and a lover's lane combined.
Okay.
So the car door slammed again and the engine turned over. But by the time they reached the area, the car was gone.
Because there's nowhere you want to make out more than a dumping site.
Right. They
But they
noticed
didn't see anybody.
fresh tire tracks in the weeds and followed the tire tracks for about 20 feet, and they started smelling something.
Uh-oh.
Then they spotted this blackish brown object with leathery skin, which they initially took to be a deer in an advanced state of decomposition.
Yeah, they assume. Like, nobody's going to drop out a person. It's got to be a deer.
Right. Flies and bugs crawled all over it. It appeared to have a head, but it was rotten and shapeless.
Oh,
Then-
rotten and shapeless head. Kind of
Well-
like mine. Oh, hey.
Then one of them noticed that the ear looked human, so they
Oh.
took off
That's a deer with a human ear.
and and drove straight to Ypsilanti post of the state police.
Okay.
So the responding officers immediately recognized the body as human.
Okay.
It was
Those are they have, everybody knows in Ypsilanti they have expert human determining cops that can determine if someone's a human or not.
Yeah. So it was nude, lying
right.
on its side, with
Nude.
face down. One forearm and hand, and the fingers of the other hand were missing.
Oh, what?
Both
Why?
feet had been severed at the ankles.
Ugh.
It was not clear at first whether the victim was male or female.
Oh,
The medical
my.
examiner estimated the victim had been dead approximately 1 month, and she was quickly identified with medical records as the missing co-ed. The farm was located approximately 3 miles from the apartment where Flezer lived. The autopsy found evidence that she had been stabbed repeatedly in the chest, approximately 30 times.
Ow, that would hurt.
And 20 of those punctures had been inflicted by a knife or other sharp object. The lower leg bones had been smashed just above the ankles. It also appeared she'd been brutally beaten.
Yikes, enough already. Why would you hurt this poor girl?
Detectives who examined the crime scene said the body had been moved at least 3 times, possibly by animals or possibly by the killer, who apparently had returned at least once. A leather and plastic sandal found at the scene was identified by Flezer's mother as belonging to her. The remains of Mary Flezer were transported to a funeral home, and then just before the funeral, there was a report that a young man in a bluish-gray Chevy had visited, claimed to be a friend of the family. He wanted to take a picture of the body.
Oh,
And they told him, no way.
No way, you weirdo.
And then he left.
Get out of here.
And then
We don't
Then
want
they
to see you or
realized-
talk to you ever again, and please don't give us your license plate number.
after he left, they realized he didn't even have a camera.
Can I take a picture with my invisible
With
camera?
my Weena. The
So-
Flezers said they didn't know who he was. They said there's no friend of the family that matches that description.
no.
No one could describe him
They
in
coulda
any
had
helpful
him.
way.
They could have had him right then and there.
And he didn't. And they looked for him at the burial and the cemetery, but he didn't show up.
You know,
so then it was almost a year before the next
Okay.
body.
oh, really? A whole year. So the guy.
Yeah. So in total, John Norman Collins was implicated in 15 murders. But only the first 7 on the list are officially considered his.
Oh, my gosh.
Numbers 8 and 9 are very likely his.
And so he might even have more that we don't even know
Right.
about.
Characteristic of all his murders were strangulation.
Wait, what's the guy's name?
John Norman Collins.
John Norman Collins. How come he's not famous if he's got all this a big body count,
I know
right?
it is.
How come he's
I don't
not
know.
as famous as all the other ones?
I don't know. But his characteristics of his murders were strangulation, beating about the head, articles of clothing missing, nude or semi-nude bodies, evidence of sexual assault, and disposal of bodies to ensure discovery. So he would leave them where people would
He
find them
wants people
quickly.
to find him.
Most of the girls had long brown hair and pierced ears, and several were having their periods, which was a weird.
How would he know that though?
Well,
That can't
they,
be.
I don't know. Well, maybe that enrages him. Maybe
What?
maybe he picks up
Enrages him?
girls and rapes them, and then if he finds out they're on their periods, he kills them, and that's why they all are on their period when they're found dead. Or
so he
something.
might have raped other people.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
Maybe. So
this I don't see again.
I
I know
know.
I say this all the time,
I
but
know.
why would you choose to listen to these things? Like you could watch
I know.
Cheers.
All right, just shush.
All right, I'll shut up.
Okay, so Mary Flezer was the first one.
All right.
The second murder was Joan Shell. She was 20 from Plymouth, Michigan. She was an art major
Joan
at
Shell.
Eastern Michigan University.
Oh, EMU.
On
Home
June
of the,
30th, 1968.
Deputy pilots. Oh, what? Sorry, what day? I'm sorry. June 30th, 1968.
1968.
That on that night, they have the Summer Smothers Brothers show.
That's hard to say.
A summertime special for the Smothers Brothers with Flip Wilson, Jerry Stiller, and Ann Mira, and Teddy Neely. That was on
Yep, okay.
that same day.
So she was, while that was going on, she was hitchhiking in front of the EMU Student Union around 10:30 p.m.
She probably was trying to hurry, get home, and see Flip Wilson. Like, I
Could
know
be.
Flip Wilson's gonna be on that show.
She was found a week later outside Ann Arbor. She had been sexually molested. Her throat was slashed, and she'd been stabbed 5 times.
Gross.
She was killed elsewhere and dumped there. Her miniskirt was twisted around her neck. She was seen getting into a car with 3 young men in it.
3 young men.
There's 3,
huh?
yeah.
Huh.
Then the third one was Jane Mixer, who was 23 of Muskegon, Michigan.
Okay.
She was a freshman law student at the University of Michigan. She was supposed to meet a David Johnson to get a ride home on March 20th, 1968.
March 20th, 1968. She was going to get a ride home the same day that on Green Acres it's planting season in Hooterville, but Oliver doesn't know what to grow. After testing the soil, he discovers Hooterville's perfect for growing rutabagas.
Yes.
That same day?
She was found the next day in a cemetery in Denton Township. She'd been shot twice in the head with a .22 caliber gun.
She's getting shot while people are watching rutabagas being
Yep.
planted on Green Acres.
She was also killed elsewhere, and a stocking was twisted around her neck.
Wow. Huh.
Then
Okay.
there was Mary
Common things.
Skelton, who was 16 of Romulus, Michigan.
Romulus.
She was a high school dropout, known to run with a bad crowd. She was last seen hitchhiking in front of Arborland Shopping Center on March 24th, 1969.
Oh. Oh, that's the day in question. That's the same day that on that show I was telling you about, Then Came Bronson.
Mm-hmm.
That series features Michael Parks as the protagonist, James Jim Bronson, a newspaper man who becomes disillusioned after the suicide of his best friend, Nick, played by Martin Sheen, and with working for The Man after a heated argument with his editor.
Okay.
And in order to renew his soul, Bronson becomes a vagabond, searching for the meaning of life and seeking experiences that life has to offer, as revealed in the series pilot. During his travels, he shares his values with the people he meets along the way and to whom he lends a helping hand when possible. He rides a Harley-Davidson and was viewed as some by a modern version of the solitary cowboy wandering the American West. The same night that was on?
Yes. She was found the next day near Glacier Way and Earhart Roads. Her skull was cracked in 3 places, and she'd been whipped with a belt and sexually molested. She was killed elsewhere and dumped there.
Man.
A garter belt was wrapped around her neck.
A garter belt?
Mm-hmm. Then Dawn Bessam, 13, of Ypsilanti, Michigan.
Oh, no. Children?
She was leaving a house near the EMU campus to go home on April 15th, 1969.
Same day on the Doris Day show, a tame tiger escapes from its owner and winds up in Doris's house, and Doris plans to take it back to its owner, but the tiger escapes again, and Doris and Leroy set out to find it before it's tracked down and shot by hunters.
Yes.
That same day.
She was found the next day. She had been strangled with a black electrical wire and stabbed in several places. She was killed elsewhere, possibly in a deserted farmhouse where items of her clothing were found.
You're not supposed to murder children.
She was an 8th grade student, the youngest of the victims.
Are you effing kidding me?
Yep.
I don't like this guy.
Then number 6 was Alice Calum of Portage, Michigan.
Oh, my gosh.
She was a University of Michigan graduate in fine arts, enrolled in grad school on June 7th, 1969.
Oh, the same day that the long-awaited debut of Eric Clapton and Steve Winwood performing together in the short-lived supergroup Blind Faith took place in front of 100,000 people in London's Hyde Park. That
Yes.
same day?
She went to a party at the Depot House in Ann Arbor and was seen dancing with a young man with long hair.
Okay.
Her body was found
That's
near an
long hair.
abandoned barn. She had been shot once in the head and stabbed twice in the chest, as well as raped. She was killed elsewhere, and her clothing were scattered around her body. Her shoes were missing.
You know, this one I blame on the people who abandoned that barn.
And then number 7 is Karen Sue Beineman, 18, of Grand Rapids, Michigan. She was an EMU freshman attending summer classes. She had just sent a note to her parents assuring them she would be careful, but that then accepted a ride on a motorcycle from a man she didn't know.
Oh,
She was last seen on July 23rd, 1969.
Oh, the same day that Americans in several groups were permitted to travel to the People's Republic of China for the first time in almost 20 years. 2 days after President Nixon and U.S. Secretary of State William P. Rogers had announced a change in policy.
Mm-hmm. She was leaving a wig shop to go with this guy on this motorcycle. And then
She sort of stayed at the wig shop.
she was later found strangled in a ravine in Ann Arbor.
Oh, man.
Roxy Phillips, 17, was number 8.
oh, no.
She
Not Roxy
disappeared on
Phillips.
June 30th, 1969.
Wait, she disappeared the same day that Sanath Jayasuriya, a Sri Lankan cricket star, was born?
I just realized these aren't in order. Oh, well. Yes. She disappeared. She was going out to mail a letter and meet a friend. And she was found. Oh, I see. Because she was found. Well,
Never mail a letter and meet a friend.
She was found on July 13th.
You're doomed.
In Pescadero Canyon, just north of Carmel, by a pair of boys looking for fossils. So you should never probably go look for fossils.
Never look for
either.
fossils. You'll always find a dead body.
She was badly decomposed and nude, except for a pair of sandals and a red and white cotton belt wrapped tightly around her neck. The body had to be carried to where it lay amidst poison oak, and then some of her possessions were found strewn along Route 68.
You know, how come poison oak doesn't get as much fear and still in people as poison
I don't think
ivy?
it's as common.
Oh, okay. I'm just tired of people knocking poison oak.
A friend of hers had mentioned having met a John driving a silver Oldsmobile who was going to college in Michigan and who rode motorcycles. She didn't think Roxy knew him, but she did admit she had met him while he was cruising near Roxy's house.
John, huh? And she remembered his name because
so it's
the same
starting
as
to
a
come
toilet.
clear. Number 9 is Eileen Adams of Toledo, Ohio.
Toledo, that's where I'm from. Eileen Adams. I probably
Yes.
knew her.
She was kidnapped in December 1967 and found in January south of Ypsilanti, raped, strangled with an electrical cord, and stuffed in a sack.
Poor lady. Poor Toledoan.
Like another victim, her bra
Pouring
was
out.
tied around her neck. She
Pouring
was
out.
cruelly beaten with a hammer, and a 3-inch nail was driven into her skull.
You know what? That's where I draw the line. You don't fuck with Toledoans. You don't fuck with Toledoans. You can kill 8 other women and a child, but once you fuck with Toledo, you fucked with me, bro. I'm gonna find this guy and I'm gonna stop these murders.
So there was in all of these cases, there were geographic similarities.
Okay. Yeah,
Several
there's
of the
all-
victims lived near the EMU campus or disappeared from there.
Okay.
Many were students, which indicated that he prowled the campuses. 6 of the 7 bodies were found in rural areas between
Oh, good
Ann
job.
Arbor and Ypsilanti,
Oh, good job.
and 5 body dump sites formed a tight circle. Only
5
Jane Mixer's body was found outside the area.
5 body dump places formed a tight circle.
Yes. The 5 dump sites close together indicate that he traveled this way back and forth and knew the area well.
Okay.
In fact, one obvious murder site, an abandoned farmhouse, showed evidence of at least 2 of the victims having been killed there, and possibly
man.
more.
Oh, my
As you know how
gosh.
they all were killed elsewhere.
Yeah.
The
They might
killer
have found the
left
place.
most of the bodies out in the open, in Lover's Lane type areas
Yep.
where they would be discovered fairly easily.
So this is
except
all
for-
southeast Michigan and northwest Ohio.
All
right?
except for Mary Flesser, who was in the weeds for a month before she was
Yeah,
discovered.
right.
However, Collins returned and apparently moved her around as if to make discovery easier. She was dumped 150 feet from a road. Joan Shell appears to have been stored in some kind of root cellar, perhaps the farm site, before being dumped 12 feet from the road and covered with grass. After that, he'd never made any effort as if he wanted the bodies to be found.
Yeah, now he's just he's
Yeah.
brazen as they become.
So between 3 witnesses from so when Karen Sue Beineman went to that wig shop,
Yeah, the wig shop
so
one.
there were 3 witnesses from the area of the wig shop. They made a composite sketch
Oh, okay.
and they
of the weirdo that was creeping around the wig shop.
and they put it in the paper. And then one person who worked at an office supply was sure that the man had been riding a Triumph motorcycle. So at the same time that this is going on,
Yeah.
a young policeman named Larry Mathewson was putting together a profile.
Larry Mathewson is going to save the day, so I don't have to, even though I'm a fellow Toledoan.
So he was acquainted with John Norman Collins,
Oh, he knew the guy, huh?
who had already been questioned during the second murder investigation.
Oh, he was questioned?
Yeah, for
Oh,
the second
shit.
murder investigation. He had seen Collins cruising around that day.
Yeah.
So borrowing a photo of him from a former girlfriend who also said she'd seen Collins driving around the campus,
Oh,
he
getting
took
to the
it,
bottom of it.
took the picture to the girl who had noticed the make of the motorcycle, and she right away said, yeah, that's
Yep,
him.
that's him.
So
That's his
he
motorcycle.
decides he's going to investigate Collins.
He's a creepy weirdo.
But he was inexperienced with murderers.
Oh.
And his unexpected visit gave Collins the opportunity to hide any evidence he had in his possession.
Oh.
Collins' housemate, Arnold Davis, recalled that he had taken a box covered with a blanket out of his room. As Davis opened the door for him, he spotted a woman's shoe, rolled up jeans, and a handbag inside the box.
Boom.
Collins later returned without the box and said he'd gotten rid of it.
Incriminating.
He was put under surveillance, but no one could stop him from thoroughly cleaning out his car.
Incriminate much?
At the same time, Police Corporal David Like,
Yeah.
who was Collins' uncle,
Oh, I like where this is going.
he returned home from vacation with his wife and 3 sons.
Oh, where did they go on vacation?
I don't know.
Was it a nice vacation?
His wife noticed patches of black paint on the concrete floor of their basement.
That's not a normal thing.
They had left their home in charge of their nephew.
Oh, maybe he was painting some
Wondered
projects.
what he had been doing there. Like noticed that a can of paint that he had left in the basement was gone. His wife said that a
Stole
box
my
of
effing
detergent and a bottle of ammonia were also missing.
Uh-oh, now it's starting to add up.
So soon they learned that their nephew was the prime suspect in the co-ed murders or the Ypsilanti murders. Like was incredulous at first, but when he heard that Collins had agreed to take a lie detector test and then he had backed down, he acknowledged that there's something wrong.
Something's going on.
He went into his basement and scraped up some of the paint, finding a stain that looked like blood.
Uh-oh.
Immediately, he called in some lab analysts. The stain turned out to be varnish, but suspiciously, Collins had called to ask if they had found out anything about it.
He called the analysts?
He called Leak and asked him.
Oh.
When Leak later told Collins that it was just varnish, Collins inexplicably began to cry. Lake recalled that he had used varnish on some shutters, but that did not explain why someone had covered it up with paint.
Yeah, you don't varnish shutters. Everybody knows that.
So as the
Everybody knows that.
the lab experts are crawling around the floor of this basement,
The lab analysts.
one of them notices hair clippings near the washing machine. And
What?
And Leak explained that his wife had cut their children's hair down there.
Oh, so that
But
explains it.
it's the same kind of hair they found on Karen Beineman's panties. They had found this
kids' hair from
yeah,
their haircuts?
Yeah.
Oh, so
that was like from the basement floor.
Yeah, so it's telling. Yeah, he did. Oh.
So then they noticed tiny droplets that looked like blood, and then when tested, it did indeed prove to be human blood.
I think I'm more grossed out that kid's hair is anywhere than
Yeah,
the blood and the murders.
When later tests revealed the bloodstains were human and that the hairs could be consistent with those on the panties, Collins was arrested.
Yeah.
Just as his attorney was taking him away from interrogations. Another 5 minutes, and he might have been able to bolt. Although
Usain Bolt.
his car had been thoroughly cleaned, blood matching Alice Calem's type was found near the front seat. A red and white piece of cotton fabric was also pulled out, and that was found to match the belt around the throat of a 17-year-old female murdered in June in California.
We got him. He's caught. He's done.
So they search his room. They don't turn up any more evidence except for what the roommate was telling him about that box that he saw him leave with. The roommate also said that Collins was a thief who ran his 4 motorcycles off stolen parts, and one of the bikes had recently been stolen. He'd been committing burglaries with a former roommate.
Really? He's been doing all this stuff in addition to the murders and the rapes?
Collins's trial began on June 30th, 1970.
Oh, his trial started the same day. It was a Tuesday. The same day that Riverfront Stadium opened in Cincinnati as a dual-purpose stadium for the Reds baseball team and the Bengals NFL team. In the inaugural event, the Reds lost to the Braves 8-2 that same day?
Yes.
Wow.
And witness selection took nearly 2 weeks. The prosecutor focused only on the murder of Karen Sue Beineman because that was the one with the most physical evidence.
They had all that, yeah.
And they didn't want to try to put them all into one because that would be harder to prove them all. And
Yeah,
then
if he
he
can't
might
prove
go
them all,
free.
then he's not...
So evidence was heard starting on July 20th. There was little rebuttal of Collins out cruising that day. 7 young women had been approached by him on his motorcycle.
Creepo.
Time of death was also resistant to challenge. Key witnesses
He was also resistant to water.
Key witnesses were the wig shop owner, an employee from the chocolate house, and the office supply girl.
Chocolate house, y'all.
And they all said it was Collins that had picked up Beineman.
Okay.
And then the roommate also testified about the box.
Yep.
Former girlfriend spoke about the motorcycle he owned.
There had to be some people that just said he's all
In all,
fucking
57
weirdo.
witnesses were called.
Wow. 57?
Yep.
Holy shit.
17 days of testimony. It was the physical
17
evidence
days.
that ultimately nailed him.
All right.
So the blood found in the basement
Yep.
and the hair.
Yep.
On August 19th, 1970.
Oh, the same day that for the first time in the 170-year history of the presidential residence in Washington, D.C., the American flag over the White House was flown at nighttime rather than being lowered in sunset. The change in protocol that occurred after U.S. First Lady Pat Nixon had learned that it was proper under flag etiquette to fly the banner after dark if it was illuminated by a spotlight. That same day?
Yep. After deliberating for 3 days, the jury said guilty of first-degree murder.
Wait, they said guilty of first-degree murder also the same day that Fat Joe was born?
Yes.
The rapper?
All right.
Okay.
Collins denied ever knowing Karen Sue Beineman and claimed that he was innocent of her murder.
He probably didn't know her.
He was sentenced to life in prison. He went through 3 appeals and even changed his name to Chapman to get a transfer to Canada, where he would have been eligible for parole in 1985. He also tried to
Really?
escape by tunneling out of the prison.
Really?
As of 1999, he's still incarcerated in northern Michigan.
He is?
As of 1999, obviously.
Oh, what year is it now?
No,
It's 2020. That's
yeah,
he could be dead.
He could be dead. The murders of the other 6 girls remains officially unsolved, but they're him. There's all kinds of people that came out and said that when he was younger, like girls would say that he was aggressive and that he would fly off the handle and he was erratic and he was
really?
psychopath. He was like a psycho.
Anyway, that was a lot.
That was a lot.
He did a lot of things. I'm surprised he's not more famous, especially that he still claims he's innocent. Like, I would think
Well,
somebody
you're
with
right.
that count is still alive in jail,
You would think they would finally say, all right.
or there'd be more shows about. I mean, there was quite a bit, but
Yeah.
we've never heard of them. But you hear about all these people, all these movies now, pop culture, and this is so popular, these murders. So anyway, well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
I will smoke the hell out of that, out of my pipe. I'll smoke that murder in my pipe.
Yep.
And I got a couple more days left in March. We'll finish those, and then
all right,
we'll call this an episode.
Sounds good.
All right. March 25th, 1969 was a Tuesday. And then March 26th, 1969 was a Wednesday. Frustrated by the rejections from publishers, John Kennedy Toole killed himself at the age of 31 without knowing that his novel, A Confederacy of Dunces, would be printed in the future and would become a bestseller and Pulitzer Prize winner for fiction.
Such a good book.
Toole drove to Biloxi, Mississippi, parked his car, and connected a garden hose with exhaust pipe for death by carbon monoxide poisoning.
Yep.
You knew that? Sad. He killed himself and he didn't even know?
His mom got it published.
I think you made me read that, right?
It's really good.
A Confederacy of Dunces. What's that about?
It's about, what's the guy's name?
Oh, wait a minute. That guy, that goofy-looking fat guy, right?
Yeah.
And there's like drawings or something in it?
Yep.
That's a great book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the guy lives with his mom or something?
Yeah,
Is that
what's
right?
the guy's
It's
name?
like Cliff Clavin. I can't remember, but...
Well, look it up really quick. Confederacy of Dunces. The main character's name is something.
I read that book. That's a great book.
Mm-hmm.
If you like books, I don't read books.
No, you
much.
don't.
Ignatius J. Riley.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's a really good book. That's sad that he killed himself without knowing anybody liked his book.
Mm-hmm.
And then Thursday, March 27th, 1969, Dick Smothers, co-producer of the popular but controversial CBS show The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, was sent a telegram by CBS President Robert Wood warning that action would be taken if Dick and Tommy Smothers continued to avoid network attempts to review advanced videotapes of the episodes prior to broadcast.
Oh, censorship.
Yep, censorship. That was too raunchy of a show. For that same day, Mariah Carey was born. And then Friday, March 28th, 1969, Dwight D. Eisenhower, the 34th President of the United States from 1953 to 1961, and U.S. Army General who commanded the Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force during World War II, died at 12:25 in the afternoon at the Walter Reed Army Hospital in Washington, D.C. He was, guess how old he was?
Eisenhower?
Yeah.
Oh, was he 74?
78. Duh.
Well, it was pretty close.
Yeah, it was pretty close. I can't believe it. I can't believe you even guessed. Sunday, March 30th, 1969, the Allman Brothers Band, formed by brothers Dwayne Allman and Greg Allman, along with Dickie Betts, Barry Oakley, Butch Trucks, and...
Butch Trucks.
Butch. His name is Butch Trucks, but...
You would call him Butch?
My brother likes to say Butch, so I started saying Butch. Butch Trucks and J-Mo Johansson played their very first concert, making their debut as at the Jacksonville Armory in Florida. Dwayne Allman would be killed in a motorcycle accident less than 3 years later in 1971. And that's the same day Eisenhower was laid to rest. Or, brought to lie in the state capitol. March 31st, 1969 was a Monday, and Kurt Vonnegut's novel Slaughterhouse-Five was first published by the Delacorte Press.
That's a good one, too.
Yeah, you love that?
That's a good one.
You want to, the rest of the episode, you want to read it out loud?
I don't think that's necessary.
Okay, well, then that ends the episode, since Amy refuses to read to our great listeners. I love you, listeners. Amy has contempt for you, apparently. But thank you for listening. Sorry we took a week off.
Shit happens.
Yeah, we just kind of got away from us. Our podcast studio was filled with furniture.
That's right.
So.
Now it's not.
Now it's not. And we're going to keep podcasting until we run out of steam.
That's right. And it's time to get out of here, Chuck Berry.
Get out of here, Chuck Berry. Thanks for listening. American Timelines is brought to you by History for Jerks, the greatest couple of lovers in history.
It's weird.
The greatest middle-aged losers. No, just me.
You're ridiculous.
I love you. I'm sorry, everybody.
So
Sorry,
tired of hearing about the 6 days.
Germany trip, take it away.
I said we're so tired of hearing about When you were all alone, no watchtower, kiss in the sky. Well, I was barely a glimmer in my young daddy's eye. I said that we're so tired of hearing about the 60s. One more time, I said we're so tired of hearing about the 60s. Well, make me shut my mouth now.
Alan asked you Alice versus Chelsea in town. Now you're stealing coffee morning for the president's ball. Well,
We're so tired of hearing about the 60s.
American Timelines is a member of the Queen City Podcast Network, powered by Ortho Carolina. Find out more at queencitypodcastnetwork.com.
Talk about pork.